Casey Cameron looked at the sweatshirt with her most critical eye. It had to be just about the coolest thing she'd seen that day. "This is the one I want," she said eagerly to her mom, who was looking at some dresses. "I don't know, honey. Do you think it's appropriate for school?" Casey sighed loudly at just how utterly uncool grown-ups were. "Mother, you said I could pick out my own clothes this year, and this is what I picked out. This shirt is so cool, all the other kids will think I'm the coolest thing in the whole entire school. Please, 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 can I have it?" Well, after a few more pleases and just a bit more begging and pleading, Mrs. Cameron finally gave in. After all, Casey wanted it, and cool was cool. No one could argue with that. So on the first day of school, Casey put on all of her coolest clothes. She put on her new sweatshirt, her radically cool pants, her ever-so-cool electric pink socks, and her absolutely too cool shoes, the ones with the lime green laces. And as she stood in front of the mirror looking at just how cool she looked, she couldn't wait to get to school to show all her friends all the cool stuff she picked out all by herself, which made her feel even cooler. But that cool feeling didn't last long. As she waited for the school bus, not one single kid told her how great she looked. In fact, everybody was talking about what they did over the summer, and nobody even noticed Casey in all her exceptionally cool clothes. On the bus, nobody, not even her best friend Lydia, said a single word about how cool Casey looked, even though Casey mentioned 8 different times that she picked out all of her clothes without any help from her mother. Outside of school, everybody just kind of milled around, saying hello after a long summer. But Casey stood off to one side and noticed that a lot of kids were dressed a lot like her. And suddenly, she didn't feel too cool at all. In fact, Mary Ellen McGuire, who wasn't at all cool, had on the exact same sweatshirt. It was not starting out to be a great school year as far as Casey was concerned. And things got worse from there. At lunch, Warren Grant accidentally spilled a gigantic glob of ketchup all over Casey's new cool shirt, which was not exactly what Casey had planned. And by the time she got home that afternoon, she felt about as uncool as she had ever felt, ever. Even though that very morning she thought she might actually have been too cool for school. And when she told her mom about what a rotten day she'd had and how nobody noticed her cool new stuff, not even Lydia, Mrs. Cameron looked concerned the way moms do. "You've learned an important lesson on the very first day of school," she said. "There's an old saying that goes, you can't judge a book by its cover, which is just another way of saying that you can't tell much about something or someone just by looking at the outside. It's what's inside that counts. That's how you tell who's really cool." And as Casey climbed the stairs to her bedroom, she thought about what her mom had said. She had thought her new clothes would make her cool, but maybe her mom was right. Maybe clothes didn't make you cool. You know, there are a lot of folks who feel like Casey. They think that if they wear certain kinds of clothes, cool clothes, that their clothes will make them cool too. Some kids like to wear a certain brand of basketball shoes, or a certain kind of shirt, or just the right kind of jeans. They want the coolest, latest clothes because they think it makes them cool. And while it's certainly important to want to look your best, you don't have to have the newest, the latest, the coolest, or the hottest clothes to look good, or to feel good about yourself. You can be cool no matter what you wear, or how you look, because cool isn't something you wear. Cool is something you are. And listen, you aren't cool just because you have all the latest toys or the coolest bike on the block either. It's not your things that make you cool. It's what you are that makes you cool. And you aren't cool just because you live in a big house or because your family drives a fancy car. Things don't make people cool. In fact, you can't tell anything about someone just by looking at what they own. Even so, we all make decisions about people by the way they look or by the things they own. When we see a kid who looks smart, we think that she must be smart, even if she really isn't. When we see a kid whose room looks like a toy store, we figure she must be really lucky and happy to have all that stuff, even if she's not really lucky or happy at all. When we see someone who looks different from us, we believe that because they look different, they must be different as well. Once again, we all make decisions about people based on how they look. It's just a natural thing to do. Yet looks can fool you. Just because someone looks different from us, that doesn't mean that they are different. They have pets and moms and dads and brothers and sisters, just like we do. Even though someone looks different, they may still like to read the same books we do. They may like to do the same things we do. They may enjoy the same TV shows, and so on. The point is, just because someone looks different or wears different clothes, just because someone has different colored skin or speaks a different language, people are still people. Looking different doesn't mean being different. All you have to do is to look around at the kids in your class to see just how true this is. Even though we all look different, wear different clothes, live in different kinds of homes, and so on, we all like many of the same things. Playing tag with our friends, going on picnics with our families, eating pizza, and other fun stuff. No, it's true, you can't tell much about someone just by what they look like. You can't tell who would make you laugh, who would be nice to have around, who you'd have fun with, or who would make a good friend, just by looking at the outside. In order to get to know someone, really know someone, you have to spend time with them, talk with them, work together in school, share ideas, talk about the things that are important to both of you. And once you spend time with someone, you're sure to get to know them. You'll get to know who they are and what kind of people they are. You'll learn the important things about them, whether they're nice, friendly, and fun to be with, for example. When you take the time to really get to know someone, you'll quickly learn whether they're polite and considerate to their friends and classmates. You'll come to see whether they're caring and kind to their friends, kind to animals, kind to the people they meet, and so forth. Spend some time with someone and you'll quickly discover their strong points, the kinds of things that really matter when it comes to deciding who's really cool. So remember, cool clothes don't make someone cool. You can be cool no matter what you wear. The nicest house, the newest toys, the flashiest bike, these things don't make you cool. Cool isn't something you have. Cool is something you are inside. It doesn't matter what color skin a person has or what language they speak. It doesn't matter where someone was born or where they live. These things don't make someone cool. You have to take the time to get to know someone before you can tell what kind of person they are. You have to talk to them, get to know them, share with them, work with them, cooperate with them. And in the end, you'll be able to tell who's a good friend, who's the kind of person you want to know better, and who's really cool. Okay, let's think about who's really cool in your school. Where do we learn about stuff like new toys? What toys are popular in your school? Are you cool if you own cool stuff? Why or why not? Next, how do you feel when you see someone who looks different from you? How do you feel when you hear someone who speaks another language or has skin a different color from you? Are these things important? Explain. And finally, cool has nothing to do with the clothes you wear or how you look or the things you have. What makes a person really cool? What makes a person the kind of friend you'd like to have? Think about these questions and discuss your answers with your teacher. It was that time of year. Time to start preparing for the world-famous, not-to-be-missed Plimpton Elementary School Thanksgiving Song Fest and pageant. Down the hall, Mr. Hamilton's class was just getting the word about the big show. "Now, class," Mr. Hamilton said, "as you all know, this Thanksgiving Song Fest and pageant will require a great deal of preparation. It's important that we do a good job because your parents and other important guests will be there to see your performance. We must all cooperate and work together to do the best job we can. Now, let's get started by deciding who will be pilgrims, who will be Indians, and who will be livestock." "I want to be a pilgrim!" shouted Laurie McNeil. "Me too!" said her best friend Franny Schwab, who always wanted to do what Laurie did no matter what. "Well, I want to be an Indian!" Mark O'Connell called out. "Me too!" said a bunch of kids who thought it would be pretty neat to dress up as the Indians who helped the pilgrims. Well, it seemed that everybody wanted to be either a pilgrim or an Indian, but nobody, not a single kid, wanted to be livestock because those kids had to wear these dusty old bogus pig and cow heads. Oh, yuck! Finally, Mr. Hamilton had to choose some volunteers to be livestock, and those kids weren't at all happy. In fact, the livestock kids all kind of grumped and growled as everybody planned the rest of the pageant. Things sure hadn't started off too well. And sadly, things only got worse as the day of the pageant neared. The kids painting the scenery got into a fight with the costume guys who were fighting with the kids making the tomahawks. And the cows and pigs were fighting with everybody because everybody was making fun of them because they had to wear these seriously goofy livestock heads. Things were just not going well, and after enough was enough, Mr. Hamilton sat everybody down in the auditorium for a good talking to. "I must say that I'm very disappointed in all of you. This is our Thanksgiving pageant, and it's up to all of us to work together to do the best job we can. We must all cooperate with each other and stop fighting amongst ourselves. In order to get this job done well, it's important for all of us to help each other. Cooperation, working together as a team, is the secret to success. Now, I want to see less bickering and more cooperating." Well, it was true that the pageant was a big job, and everyone had to admit that things would run more smoothly if they stopped fighting and all worked together. So things did change after Mr. Hamilton's little chat. The scenery painters stopped fighting with the costume makers, who stopped bickering with the tomahawk makers, and everybody stopped picking on the poor kids who had to wear those stupid cow heads. And all in all, everybody started working together as a team. And all of that cooperation finally paid off. On the day of the Thanksgiving pageant, the pilgrims were great, the Indians looked terrific, and the livestock kids got a big cheer from all of the parents in the audience. That's just the way it goes when everybody works together. You know, all you have to do is look around your class to see just how many different kinds of people there are in school. There are big kids and little kids. There are kids with black skin and brown skin, white skin, red skin, and yellow skin. And there may even be kids who speak different languages and come from different lands. In any school, in your school, you're bound to see all kinds of different kids. You'll see nice kids, bratty kids, funny kids, kids who like sports, kids who can multiply 7 times 8. Your school is filled with all kinds of kids, and with all of these different kids, there are bound to be disagreements, squabbles, and even the occasional kaboom! Let's face it, sometimes it's tough to get along with everybody. But you know, there are things we can all do to get along better with the other kids in our class, our classmates. There are things we can do to avoid the bickering, the arguing, and all of that unpleasantness. To begin, it's important to remember a few things about school. First off, there are going to be times when some kids feel like they, and they alone, should come first, that they should be the center of attention. So they push ahead of everybody else in line, or they shout out the answer without raising their hand, Or they grab stuff off other kids' desks. Or maybe they don't share with the others in class. And maybe you felt like that once in a while. Maybe you felt that you should be first, that you should get the attention that someone else is getting. It's a feeling that most of us feel, now and then. But the fact is that no one kid can be the center of attention all of the time. School isn't just about you or for you. School is for everybody. School is for all of the different kids in your class. So what does that mean? It means that sometimes you have to let others have their way. You have to let your friends go first, ahead of you, because it's a plain nice thing to do. It means waiting your turn in line without a lot of fussing, whining, poking, shoving, and other sorts of waiting in line kinds of mischief. And it means cooperating with your classmates to get things done. When folks cooperate, they all work together as a team. Remember, school is for all of the kids in class, not just you. So cooperate with the other kids in your class to get jobs done quickly, easily, and without a whole lot of fuss and bother. Work together with the other kids in your class to make your school a better place to be and a better place to learn. And cooperate by always remembering that school things are for everybody's use, not just yours. It's your job to take care of things like library books, textbooks, school furniture, and such. Take care of school things so that other kids can enjoy them after you. Remember, the things in your school belong to everybody, so it's everybody's job to take care of them. Now, here's another thing we can all do to get along better with the kids in our school. You know, even though we'd like things to go our way most of the time, that's just not always possible. Once again, there are lots of different kids in school, and you just can't have things your way all of the time. It wouldn't be fair. And so there are times when you just have to find ways to solve the differences between you and a friend. One excellent way to solve differences is to find a compromise when you and a friend disagree. Let's look at an example of a compromise. When you compromise with a classmate, you give in a little and they give in a little. Instead of fighting over a game during a rainy day recess, you might say something like, "Okay, you go first today, I'll go first tomorrow." When you compromise, you get what you want sometimes, and your friends get what they want sometimes. You go first today, they go first tomorrow. They choose what to play now, you choose later. Compromises settle disagreements before they become disagreements. It's true that it isn't always easy getting along with our classmates, but there are some things everybody can do to get along better. First, it's important to remember that there are lots of different kinds of kids in school. And in order to get along with all of these different kids, it's important to remember that school is for everybody, not just you. No one can be the center of attention all of the time. No one gets to go first all of the time because it just wouldn't be fair. Now, would it? It's also important to remember that school stuff belongs to everybody, and it's your job to take care of these things so that other kids can use them and enjoy them after you. It's one way we can cooperate with our classmates. It's also important to cooperate with the other kids in school to get work done quickly and without a lot of bother. When folks cooperate, they work together as a team, sharing the work. We can also cooperate to make school a better place to learn. We can help each other to learn. We can help each other keep school neat, clean, safe, and a fun place to be. We can all cooperate in many ways, but when disagreements do come up, we can look for ways to compromise with our friends so the disagreements end without a lot of fussing and feuding. We can give a little, and our friends can give a little. We can share sometimes, go second sometimes, let the other guy have his or her way sometimes. These are ways we can compromise and get along better with others in school. So remember, you can make your school a better, more enjoyable place to learn by cooperating and learning to compromise with the other kids in your class. After all, these kids are not only your classmates, they're also your friends. Okay, let's think about getting along with our classmates for just one more moment. Sometimes we just want things to go our way. We want to be first, or we want to shout out all the answers. Is that fair to the other kids in class? Why or why not? Next, what is cooperation? Why is cooperation so important in school? How can you better cooperate with the kids in your class? Explain your answers. And finally, let's say you want to jump rope at recess, but your best friend wants to play kickball. You could fuss and fight over the disagreement, or you could find a compromise. What might be a good compromise in this case? Think about these questions and discuss your answers with your teacher. There were 3 things Mickey McNeil hated more than anything else in the whole world. Pens that leaked all over your hands, bratty kids who made fun of you all the time, and gym class every Monday and Friday with Mr. DeLuca, the gym teacher. Oh, it wasn't that Mickey disliked Mr. DeLuca or anything. He was a good guy and all that. It's just that Mickey wasn't good at kicking soccer balls, hitting baseballs, or passing basketballs. In fact, he'd have been happier if he never saw another ball again. And some days, even Mr. DeLuca would have agreed with that. You see, when Mickey kicked too hard or struck out for the zillionth time, or when he tossed the basketball into the seats, all the kids, including his best friends, laughed, pointed, teased, and called him all sorts of names. And even though he pretended to laugh along with everybody else, he hurt inside. It made him feel terrible that all of his friends were laughing and making fun of him just because he couldn't kick a stupid ball. Mr. DeLuca would always try to be helpful. "Don't worry about it, Mixter," he'd say, calling Mickey Mixter. "You're getting better every day." But it didn't really help. Mickey always felt bad when his friends teased him. He couldn't understand why friends would call each other names and make each other feel awful, especially about something as stupid as kicking a ball. A lot of kids are like Mickey. They can't understand why kids can be so mean to each other, why kids would tease each other, call each other names, and just make things harder than they ever had to be. But sad to say, this type of teasing goes on every day in school. You'll see it in your classroom, in the cafeteria, on the playground at recess, or in gym class. Somebody's always teasing someone about something somewhere in school. We all know what teasing is. Teasing is when we make fun of somebody, call them names, make fun of how they look or how they act, how they dress, or what they do or say. Now, teasing can be good-natured and fun, but all too often it's harmful, aimed at hurting someone's feelings. Sadly, people are often teased about their weaknesses. If someone can't sing well, sure enough, they'll be teased about it. If someone dresses differently or talks differently, if someone acts differently from us, They may be teased about those things that make them different from the rest. If someone is smaller or weaker or just different, they get teased. We don't often poke fun at our good friends or at people like us. It's usually kids who are different, who aren't a part of our group, that are picked as targets for teasing. Boys tease girls all the time and about stupid stuff, too. Part of the reason for that is because boys and girls are different. And girls tease boys and call them stupid names just because they're boys, just because they're different from them. Big kids tease little kids because it makes them feel bigger and stronger. Strong kids tease weaker kids. You'll never see a weak little first grader teasing a big, strong fifth grader, unless, of course, he has a serious case of the stupids. Kids from other neighborhoods and kids from other countries are teased for no other reason than they aren't from here. But as we said, not all teasing is bad. Not all teasing is meant to hurt someone else. Some teasing can be just plain fun. During a baseball game, the kids on the field tease the batter. The fans tease the ump or the other team. This kind of teasing is fun because no one gets hurt. When your best friend tells you that you look like the leaf monster when you slip and fall in the wet leaves, it's all just in fun. Teachers may tease their students in a nice kind of way to get them to work a little harder. And students may even tease their teachers just to let them know they like them. When the school nurse teases you about growing so fast that you'll be 113 feet tall by summer, well, that kind of teasing is the best kind of teasing of all, the kind that just makes you smile. But another kind of teasing doesn't make people smile. It makes them cry. It doesn't make them feel good inside. It makes them feel sad. This kind of teasing hurts people. Sometimes it's hard to remember that we all have feelings. When people are teased, they feel sad and mad. Teasing hurts people. It hurts your friends. When you call someone a name just to be mean, it hurts them, and it doesn't do anything for you. Nobody wants to hurt others, but sometimes we forget that teasing does hurt other people. So what can you do as a plain, ordinary kid? What can you do to help stamp out teasing in your school and get along better with your classmates and friends? Well, you can do a lot. For one thing, you can remember that teasing does hurt people. So don't tease others. Don't tease your friends. Don't tease your classmates. Don't tease the younger kids in school. Don't tease kids who are different or kids who are weaker than you. One thing everybody can do is to remember that teasing hurts other people. Here's something else you can do. When one of your buddies teases someone, don't laugh or join in. Don't make the problem worse, and don't go along with the crowd. Tell your friend to stop. Tell her that teasing someone else isn't funny or fun. And if that doesn't do the trick, walk away and let her know how you feel. That you won't be someone who teases, because teasing hurts other people. Just remember, teasing is making fun of people, usually people who aren't like us. Big kids tease little kids, boys tease girls, girls tease boys. Teasing goes on everywhere. Also, remember that some teasing is fun, and in fact, some teasing makes us feel good inside. This kind of teasing just makes you smile. But other kinds of teasing are mean, and they're meant to hurt people, to hurt their feelings. This kind of teasing makes people feel sad and angry. Sometimes it makes people cry, and you have to admit it's hard to figure out why anyone would want to hurt a friend like that. Remember that we all have feelings, and teasing really does hurt. Just think back to when you were teased. Chances are you didn't feel too cool about it, because no one ever does. So think before you tease the new kid in school or your oldest, best buddy ever. Think before you say something mean. And when you see your friends teasing someone, don't join in. Tell them teasing isn't funny and it isn't fun. And if they still don't stop, just walk away and ignore them. They'll stop soon enough. It's up to you, up to your friends and your classmates. You can make things better, easier, and a whole lot more fun in your school when you say that teasing isn't cool. All right, now let's think about teasing and name-calling for just one more minute. Why do people tease each other? Is all teasing bad? How can you tell good teasing from bad teasing? Next, how do you feel when people tease you? Are you a so-called good sport about it, or do you let your real feelings show? And finally, what can you do to stamp out the teasing and name-calling problem in your school? Think about these questions and discuss your answers with your teacher. Before he stepped foot in school, before he even stepped into the building, Mr. King, the third-grade teacher, refereed his first fight.
Mr. King,
Melissa Collins whined.
Brian pushed ahead of me on the bus line, and then he pushed me away from the window and made faces. Did not,
Brian replied in this extremely bratty way that made Mr. King groan. Later, he broke up a fight on the playground between these two fifth-graders who were fighting over a basketball. And at lunch, he had to be the umpire when Doug Lloyd said that Sue Ann Hollibird pushed in a line, but Becky Grant claimed savesies even though the whole world knew that savesies were not allowed in the lunch line, an unwritten law that everybody usually obeyed. All that day and for just about every day ever, Mr. King settled differences, solved disagreements, and broke up the occasional rolling around in the dirt fight on the playground. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes for many teachers, maybe even yours. School's a pretty busy place with lots of people, lots of activity, and, sad to say, lots of differences, disagreements between friends and classmates. Hey, with all of those people doing all of those things, there's bound to be differences. Two guys want to read the exact same book at the exact same time, and whammo, they're screaming in the school library. Somebody cuts ahead in the bus line, somebody goes first when they should go second, somebody takes something that doesn't belong to them, and boom, you have blow-ups from one end of school and back again. Somebody teases another kid, or somebody gets teased. Somebody calls somebody else a stupid name or says something mean, and pow, you've got trouble in the hallways. It's a fact that people just naturally disagree, and differences do come up, especially when you have so many different people doing so many different things in one place, like your school. So it's important to find ways to settle differences, to make your school a better place to learn and a better place to be each day. Let's face it, if we can learn to settle our differences, things would be a whole lot nicer day in and day out. Now, in the past, kids have tried to settle their differences in several ways. Hitting, rolling around on the floor, and wrestling out in the dirt have all been tried without much success. Fighting like this just gets you into trouble and really doesn't solve the disagreement, whatever that disagreement is. Name-calling and general meanness have both been tried as a way to settle differences, but again, without any success. When you call someone a name or when you're mean, it makes them mad, and things only get worse. Nothing is ever settled by calling someone a name, by teasing, or by being mean. It just makes things worse for everybody. Another way kids try to settle differences between themselves is, as we've seen, by running off to get some unfortunate grown-up involved. A bus monitor, a teacher, the crossing guard on the corner, or some other someone with more important things to do than referee some silly argument about some silly thing. Kids have been using grown-ups as argument referees ever since kids and grown-ups were invented. Unfortunately, this approach has had limited success. Grown-ups don't like being referees over silly disagreements like who gets to use the globe first or who closes the window in class. It just isn't fair to pull a teacher away from what they're doing to settle an argument you should be able to work out yourself. And the sillier the disagreement, the more unfair it is. So, fighting doesn't work, name-calling, teasing, and general meanness don't work, and telling some grown-up about your troubles doesn't really work either. There has to be a better way. And fortunately, there is. Yes, folks, you, ordinary everyday kids, can learn to settle your own differences. You don't have to be a genius, and you don't have to be a grown-up to learn how to settle differences between you and your friends. It's easy, once you know how. Just listen. First off, when you find yourself having a disagreement with someone in school, stop to ask yourself if this is really something worth arguing over. Or is it something kind of silly, bordering on a little stupid? Ask yourself, why am I arguing? Are you disagreeing over something that really matters to you? Or are you bickering just because you feel like bickering? If it really isn't worth a big Megillah, don't make a big Megillah over it. That makes sense, doesn't it? If it is an argument worth arguing, stop for a moment and try to see the other guy's side of things. Maybe you're wrong about this one. Maybe the other guy is right. Or maybe you're a little right, but the other guy is a little right too. Arguments, disagreements, and differences usually have two sides, and you should try to think of both. If you can see both sides to a disagreement, maybe you can find a compromise, a way to settle your differences so that both of you win a little and both give in a little. Here's another example. Let's say both you and a friend are chosen to be flag monitors. You know, the kids who raise the flag each morning. Anyway, both you and your classmate argue because you both want to raise the flag every day. A real problem, wouldn't you say? Well, you could compromise. Something like, you raise the flag one day, and your friend does it the next. Then you, then her, and so on. That would be a compromise. Now, you don't get to raise the flag every day, and neither does your pal. But you both get to do it some of the time, and that's better than nothing, right? Well, that's the way compromises can settle differences between friends. Okay, now let's say you're playing hopscotch, and you say if you land on the line it's good, and your friend says no, it isn't. If you can't find a compromise, see if the two of you can agree on a kid referee, someone you both trust, who can act like a judge and help you settle the differences between you. You could explain your side of things, calmly and without a lot of name-calling and a lot of screaming and yelling. And your friend can explain his side of things without a lot of teasing, fussing, and other kinds of unpleasantness. And in the end, you let your referee decide, and you go on with the game, go on with the day, go on with your life. Sometimes using another kid to settle differences is the best way to get things fixed. But if you really have an important disagreement with a classmate, and it's really worth fighting over, and you don't see the other guy's side of things, and you can't work out a compromise or find a kid referee, then by all means talk to a grown-up. Talk to a teacher, or the bus driver, the playground monitor, crossing guard, or some other adult who can help you settle the differences between you. There are differences that just can't be settled by kids alone. There are disagreements where you'll need a grown-up to act as umpire and referee. Sometimes It's the only way. Just make sure that before you run to your teacher or some other grown-up, make sure that it's important, that it really matters, and that you've tried to work things out by yourselves. If you've done this, then talk to a grown-up to get things settled. And one last thing. When the argument is over, make sure it's over. Don't stay mad and don't try to get even. Let it go and get on to something new. Nothing is worth fighting over forever, so patch things up and move on. It's true that there are bound to be disagreements, arguments, and differences between all of the different people you meet in school. It's natural, and there's not much anybody can do about that. But you can settle those differences quickly by deciding if it's really worth fighting over, trying to see the other guy's side of things, looking for compromises, using kid referees, and using teachers and other grown-ups as a last resort when all else fails. In no time, you'll see that peacefully settling differences between you and your friends is better and easier than fighting with the kids in your school. Now let's think about settling our differences for just one more moment. It's important to know when something is worth disagreeing over. How do you know when a disagreement is important and when it's silly? Next, it's important to try to see the other guy's side of things when you disagree. How can you do that? How can you get someone to see your side of things? And finally, how can a compromise be used to settle a disagreement between classmates? Have you ever given in a little to get a little something in a disagreement? Have you ever compromised with a friend or someone at home? If so, when? Think about these questions and discuss your answers with your teacher.